What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Marvel Pair Up, your weekly show, if a show is on every week, where we take whatever episode Disney Plus is making, WandaVision, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, and pair it up thematically or historically with whatever aligns with it. If it's Miss Marvel and teen movies or WandaVision and sitcoms right now, it is She-Hulk and legal comedies in both film and television, and we'll be talking about why those things sync up together. As always, I'm your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Jamie Dirac.
Hello.
And Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And we are on episode 3 of She-Hulk. Let's get into it. What did you guys think?
For me, this was my favorite because this is the most sitcom-y of the episode so far. This felt like I'm watching an episode of just a random sitcom, and it just happens to be the Marvel universe. I love the break wall, the fourth breaking of the wall on this one, because she kind of directly speaks to us and like, hey, yeah, I realize we're having cameos every week, but this is still my jam. I still run this. But I love that Wong pops in, does some comedic beats, but it still feels like it's still Wong, but it's Wong doing comedy, but it's taking sort of the piss out of some of the things that the Marvel universe has done. I love when that happens. It's essentially what Deadpool does all the time, and now we're just getting with She-Hulk. I love that, and I quite enjoyed the post-credit sequence, if I will say so myself.
Yes. I enjoyed it very much. It's probably my least favorite of the 3, but that doesn't mean I didn't love it, because I did. I really enjoy that it's like it is in sitcom territory. My favorite part of the episode is when she made a joke about the A and B plots.
I love, yeah,
because it's like, yeah, because that's exactly what this is. I loved the Megan Thee Stallion cameo. I mean, we haven't gotten a lot of celebrity cameos in the MCU, and that was just silly and funny. And the credit scene was it was great. It made me laugh. I'm just loving everything the show is doing, and this could not be a more perfect episode for what we're talking about today. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I agree. It was probably my favorite so far, and I think for all the reasons we've mentioned, we're like full on sitcom and we're full on legal show. And in a very weird way, I liked how episodic it felt. We had a case with an Asgardian shapeshifter, and this is sort of this is what I'm buying with this show. It's like, I want a weird, wacky superhero case that's off the beaten path that we haven't seen. So, like, let's do it. I know Frogman's on the horizon and Matt Murdock, and which is why I'm like, oh, yeah, it's not a cameo show. We've got Frogman coming and Daredevil showing up. We're going to have some more cameos, and I'm here for it. I love everything we're doing with her character. I liked watching the start of the defense with Emil Blonsky. I'm enjoying we're seeing it now, right? He also can control the Abomination. We're sort of answering all the questions that we had at the top of like, well, why is this different? And why could the Hulk do this? And she can do this. I was like, well, he's done the meditation work apparently and can now just evolve on command and de-evolve. There's not really a reason outside of these theories that the Hulk and Moon Knight both have DID of why he wouldn't be able to also eventually do this, which he does in the Avengers anyways, when that's my secret, Cap. So it's like, there, we figured it out. Everyone has the secret. It's fine. Yeah. Which frankly, I don't mind, because I would get tired of being like, oh, they're mad. He's going to transform we've seen it 1,000 times. Like the 5th time you watch an angry Bruce Banner morph, you're like, we got it. Just become the Hulk. Just do it. So I'm in. I liked everything. I really, really enjoy the problematic coworker jokes that we keep getting of him just being a disillusioned man do you really think he could get Megan Thee Stallion? Oh yeah, he's that delusional.
He absolutely thinks he can get
100. He kept telling me without asking, you wanted to know. You wanted to know. I was like, this is I'm here for this weird, terrible character.
I love the controlling of the thing, because it makes the button at the end of this episode when she's getting mugged in the alley and they're all on top of her. She's like, wait a minute, hold on. I can turn into the Hulk. Let me handle this real quick. But this is also the first time that we get a through line. Like, yes, it's still an episodic episode, but we do finally get like a piece that's like, there's an overarching story that we're also attaching to all of this while we do this episodic stuff as well.
Yeah, we've introduced, I think I talked about it in Miss Marvel. We're starting to see the formula of these shows. And it seems around 3 and 4 is when we get the villain is revealed, the main story is revealed. We were done. We've done the homework of who these people are. So it's like, okay, cool. Now we're gonna get the big bad and what they want and the why. Then we're gonna go do that. And then I'm sure episode 9 will be some sort of action big bet. Like you can't have all these Hulks and then be like, they're not going to fight. Yeah. The Abomination's actually cured.
I talked to Tim Roth this week. Big deal for me. Go on comicbook.com to read my interview. But he did tease that I don't know if he's really reformed, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, they're doing a good job with what I'm assuming are the Thunderbolt characters of all of them that we know about, the U.S. Agent, Black Widow. There's rumors of Ghost being a part of it, and Abomination also, we're assuming. Where right now it's like none of them are evil and sinister. They're just misguided, or in like John Walker's case, dumb. And so it's like, this is going to be a great team of people who like probably for a minute think they're doing the right thing. And then someone's going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Are we the bad guys? And then some of them are going to be like, yeah,
absolutely.
Now we're the bad guys because we were, and then we tried to be better. And then you didn't want us to be better. So F it. We're going to go be the bad guys now. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in. And if they're hunting the White Vision, or my new dumb theory is like an X-Men or 2, they're going to go try to get some mutants, introduce them there. I'm excited for that movie. But yeah, I'm
so excited for Thunderbolts. Like more than a lot of things that like I should be more excited about.
The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, ooh, Thunderbolts is coming.
If we get Florence Pugh and Tim Roth
only because
in a movie together,
right? I'm a Yelena stan, so I'm all in it. So you put Yelena and like Tim Roth together, I'm like, yep.
And I mean, Pie in the Sky. You think we might get Bullseye and Born Again? We might get Bullseye, and I was like, ooh, it's gonna be so good.
The only thing that bums me out is that there's no William Hurt.
Yeah, it's like I feel like we're gonna. I mean, it's in the title. And granted, he's not in all the runs, but I feel like you're gonna have to put Thunderbolt back on the map. You might just have you're gonna have to recast that just because it's ingrained in that. But that sucks.
I mean, the first or like the OG real back in the day team is Zemo, correct. And so there's a
Red Hulk on there. So yeah, it's possible to do it without him, but
it's a bummer.
Name is now synonymous with him, so it's kind of hard to separate them.
There's
Liv Tyler shows up.
I would love it. I'm here. I'm loving the speculation of like, are we about to get the leader back? Are we about to get a lot of these incredible Hulk villains that we just sort of like left on the cutting room floor?
Is that Tim Blake Nelson, the leader? Okay.
I think so. I was like, I don't even remember who played him, but that's
okay.
Yeah.
I was like, we could be bringing back a lot of Phase 1 stuff, and yes, I say to it. I love it. I also love the post-credit scene. I think all the comedy is on brand. I think people are forgetting that really, I would argue, since the Avengers, the post-credit scenes have mostly been comedy. Shawarma, Therapy, Bucky was a serious one. Bruce and Tony in Therapy, and Iron Man 3, that was the bit.
I think people just have to realize that. I mean, like,
She-Hulk the MCU's been funny.
Correct. And She-Hulk has been funny for a long time. It's been breaking the fourth wall. She-Hulk in the comics was Deadpool before Deadpool was even around. So a lot of the things that she's doing makes sense. She was jump roping naked before. She used to Xerox her butt at the job. Like that. This is all on brand for She-Hulk.
Also, none of the other shows had a credit scene every single episode. So like,
I mean, I missed the first one because I was like, they don't do that. And then everyone was like, there's a joke. And I was like, oh, I love jokes. Speaking of jokes, I think unless anyone has more to say on the wonderful episode, this week, as I mentioned, I think I did, we're pairing it up with Night Court, which is the blueprint, I would say, for a legal satire show, maybe not in movie form. We have that blueprint tucked away for later. But Night Court, NBC's darling, I think the AV Club in an article called it the black sheep of their Thursday night lineup.
It was.
The mid 80s until the early 90s, 9 seasons. It was part of the block with Cheers, and I believe the Cosby Show was the
was on there.
big, yeah, the
Cosby was
big
the
lead in.
Cosby was the lead in, and then
And
this round out the
yeah,
the
and those were
Bachelor.
then you had four. The Jeffersons was the fourth one at the time.
No,
I wasn't.
For a while there was Cosby, A Different World, which was
Different
Cosby
World.
spinoff, and then the two Night Court and
Cheers.
yeah, Cheers, yeah.
And it I mean it really, it's a fascinating show because it's little darling. Like I was just reading a quote with the director of the pilot, and his quote was, "It's a great show. It's going to take about 4 years for people to really latch onto it because it's not high concept. People want high concept right now. It doesn't matter how good it is, but it'll be fine."
And it,
you know who that was that you just quoted would be James Burrows, who directed almost all of Cheers.
Right.
And what's interesting is he only directed the pilot of Night Court, and it's because he was like a big name in sitcoms. He'd be like the Ken Kwapis of that time. And it's interesting because Night Court started in '84, which was 2 years after Cheers. And Harry Anderson, who's the lead, Harry the judge, was a recurring character on Cheers. One of my favorite occurring characters, Harry the Hat. And so I'm sure there's a connection there, and that his role in Cheers helped get him that leading role in Night Court. And what's funny about all those sitcom things was 82 was when Cheers started, and 82 was also when Family Ties started. And the second episode of Night Court, Michael J. Fox.
Yay!
And it's like, so when Michael J. Fox showed up in the second episode of Night Court, he was already 2 years into Family Ties. Like sitcoms, it's just the same thing now.
To the point where they had to put special guest Michael J. because he at that point was already starting to blow up, and I like to get him on your second episode of your sitcom. That's a big
and they
thing,
were so.
Yeah.
They were so worried about Night Court not doing well because it was Harry's first lead, and he was like a stand-up and in Cheers and a magician, apparently, is what I was just seeing. Great. I love it. So they were like, I don't know. We got to bring in these special guests to really.
And there was nobody like, whereas Cheers had at least Ted Danson, it had like names, or Cosby had like a character to it. Like there was an actor that we can attach to this. This was kind of coming in out of just off the concept. Like there was nobody who was a really that known of a name out of this in this series.
And it took a while to get going because the first episode has a woman in it who doesn't show up again.
Her, and then
the other woman's only in the first season. The steady woman doesn't show up until season 3.
The romantic lead that actually becomes the romantic lead that is the main one doesn't come until season 3, and the biggest foil that sort of goes back and forth with John Larroquette's character, and that's what people know Night Court to be. So they don't really find their groove until season 3, and then they're off to the races. But those first two, there's pieces that work, and it's still starting to gain traction. But there's a lot of like replace this piece, replace this piece, replace this piece, put this one in. They lost. This is a weird series that they lost because they kept hiring older people to be the second bailiff. They lost 2 bailiffs back to back because they both died of cancer, literally in back-to-back seasons. Like one of them was there. She was an actual chain smoker in real life. She was a chain smoker on this show. She died of cancer. The following year, they replaced her, put another one, and then she died of cancer. And then they were like, all right, let's just cast younger. And so they went with the black woman who wound up being the one that most people recognize as the second bailiff to Richard Mole's tall, bald guy.
Yeah, he's so funny.
He's so, this show is so funny.
It's, you know what's okay. I just want to say that like this is what like probably will be my favorite that we do of this, because my favorite of all of our shows have been WandaVision, not just because I love WandaVision the most, but because I love deep diving into sitcoms. And I'm sad that I only watched the first 2 episodes of Night Court for this, because now I want to watch all of Night Court, and it's going to be like when we did WandaVision and I watched the first episode of Modern Family, and then a month later I had watched every single episode.
I mean, Jamie, season 9 is when Gilbert Gottfried shows up for a few seasons, and what's so crazy about this show is it almost now feels ahead of its time, because I think they were right. In the 80s, it was like we talked about on WandaVision, we were getting specific kinds of family sitcoms, but non-family sitcoms were like get bigger. This was one of a weird, almost like workplace, the family, they're friends and they make a family together, and we're going to keep getting the Phantom of the Courtroom and the ventriloquist episode. And we get so big that I was like, this is like a prototype Scrubs in The Office.
Well, that's what I was about to say. This was what started Scrubs, because they do have those big characters. We had in the second episode, there's a guy who believes he's Santa. And for the most part, most of the audience, you're like, oh, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, to the point where it ends with a reindeer. But what's crazy is that it is comedy on top of comedy. But like Scrubs, when this wants to get serious, it's like, cool, drop all the comedy. We're about to get some drama right now. We're about to be in your face for the next 5 minutes. Sit in it. And
I
you're like, wait,
literally,
what?
I can't believe that the second episode of Night Court was the second episode.
Right.
First of all, Michael J. Fox, very dramatic character. He's crying in Harry's arms.
Yeah.
It's so dramatic. But then there's fucking Santa Claus. And this is what, okay, so I know we're not going to get into all the stupid, shitty reactions that people have had to the twerking and Megan Thee Stallion because Twitter has been a piece of shit. But I do want to say, the funniest comment I saw was somebody who had the audacity to say that it was stupid because lawyers wouldn't do that. And I'm like, let me tell you about a little show called fucking Night Court, where in episode 2, a man believes he's Santa, and by the end of the episode, the audience believes he's Santa. There's a reindeer. It literally feels like the little elf lady from She-Hulk, like that ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like also, sir, Lionel Hutch, Julie Louis-Dreyfus in Arrested Development, Jackie Childs. We're going to talk about
argument.
Well,
it's a straw man. It's not even a straw man argument. It's just a bad argument.
Conceit of this episode, I mean, this series is that like Harry Anderson is this like 34-year-old super young judge that gets put in this position off on a whim, but he has these weird, quirky ways that he deals with his court. He's pulling out magic coins from behind people's ears. He's got magic balls, but he does things unorthodox compared to what a typical lawyer wants. Like John Larroquette hates the guy because he's like, well, what the hell is this guy doing? But all of his stuff, there's a means and a reason to it all. And so it's just the comedy ensues off of him just being this weird out of the box type of character. That is what makes good comedy. You have to sort of just do the weird and off the wall shit.
I have to say that before this, like my most history of Night Court is the 30 Rock episode with the one with the cast of Night Court, where they're all Night Court cast is there, and the joke is that Jenna like showed up towards the end of the series as a werewolf lawyer, and that was them jumping the shark, and they all hate her because she ruined Night Court. And I was like, and it was always to me like, haha, that's so funny. But watching the second episode with Santa Claus, I'm like, it really, if they really had a werewolf lawyer, now I believe it.
I mean, Jamie, the Phantom of the Opera episode, he has a lair. He's stealing things to make his own courtroom. It is bananas.
I now see that episode in a whole different light.
It starts getting bigger and bigger. Like the next episode after the one you're watching is like there's this woman who had like they're getting married and her husband finds out that she'd taken naked photos beforehand, and so you have John Larroquette. That's when he starts becoming the sleazy lawyer, like looking at the photos like and thing. But it builds up. Each episode starts like weirder and weird. Like you have a nun because these characters start getting more and more freaky as it goes along. Like to the point where like by the back in last season, you're like, yeah, we are dealing with like actual ghosts and
it works. It works well that it's at night. That it is like this is the late night shift. We're gonna get the weird stuff.
Yep.
I'm so sad it's only streaming with ads because I want to watch it so bad, but like that's like takes twice as long. And I looked up and I recently bought all of that 70s show on DVD. Now it's on Peacock, but 2 months ago it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I literally got the entire series of that 70s show for $25. You can only get Night Court for like $200.
Yeah, it's
and
a very.
Like, I want it, but that's a lot of money for.
There
I just
is
watch
a
the ads.
sequel series coming, so that might change.
And then someone's gonna get it. Yeah, 2020 they announced a development for a sequel series. They like straight up.
I mean, it's filming. It's on the lot. Yeah, it's Larroquette is in the show, but it is Harry's daughter that is the lead of
I like that, but with Harry being gone, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's like how they're trying to do Frasier without John Mahoney. Please.
Yeah, but so I think now it might start popping up again because they're gonna want that to be known.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great. All you need is Gilbert Godfrey as the prosecutor. I was like, we could have given him a whole show. I would have done. This is only 3 episodes, and it's so good. Your Honor, he's guilty. He's guilty, Your Honor. He's so great. Yeah, but this show really is. I mean, obviously, the blueprint for She-Hulk and what we're doing, and I think it, especially with the absurdity of it. That it very much already, I'm like, this is exactly what I want the superhero lawyer show to be. I want every case that this team is getting to get bigger and weirder. Asgardian pretending to be Megan Thee Stallion.
Mhm.
Perfect. We should just keep going down that road.
Yeah. How Night Court used the night, it happening at night, basically the late shift being, and you get the weirdos and that. This has the added thing of the weirdos are the superheroes. So use that, like lean into it, get that weird stuff. So that's why this episode I think rung a little bit higher for me. I was like, yeah, a changeling and how you do that. That's pretty smart. That's a well done episode.
And, to the point Jamie made earlier about the guy who's the lawyers would never do this. It was like, well, this is also a very good sitcom to watch because it does a very good job of just being a comedy with lawyers, but it also rounds out its characters like Scrubs does. And it is very much like these guys have a life outside of it too. And they are going to make mistakes and they are going to make out in Central Park. And they're also people that are going to, like the Scrubs episode where they're on call and drink and show up. And it's like, if they did that in one of these shows, something like a doctor would never, and it's like a doctor 110% of that has definitely happened. There have definitely been lawyers who have twerked before. Have you, you're like that person who thinks the teacher lives at the school. Like, have you not, like you go out in the world and you're like, oh, they're at a bar.
Yeah.
How weird. And then it's like, no, it's not.
Say that was just so funny is that somebody, showed strips of She-Hulk's comic and goes, She-Hulk was always like this. She-Hulk was always stupid. And somebody goes, well, if She-Hulk was always silly and funny, then how come she also complained about being catcalled and harassed? You can't be both. What? I'm sorry, as a woman, I don't like to be catcalled, but I also like to shake my ass sometimes in public. Like,
and you have that right to do both.
Yeah,
like,
that's
sanity.
Yeah, that's
like,
just that's a broken brain.
Yeah,
that is just a broken brain
exactly.
right there.
Yeah,
it is. But like, yeah, I cannot like urge people enough to if you're loving She-Hulk to watch Night Court because it is like Legally Blonde and stuff is very similar in tone, but like this is a sitcom, it's a show. It is. I don't think there's anything we're going to be talking about that is more on the money,
on brand,
similar to She-Hulk than Night Court.
It's so interesting to me that for so long they were like, Seinfeld meets Legally Blonde is the pitch. And I'm like, how are they not talking about Night Court all the time?
Is it because it's the 80s? Don't
know Night Court. Like Night Court.
I suppose.
It's not like Cheers. Like, so
like
Cheers to Taxi to Night Court was kind of the path. And people our age, like, aren't big on Taxi on Night Court. Like Cheers really kind of burst through because it was on Netflix for a long time.
And then they had a spin-off
it's Cheers,
Frasier was more our generation.
Right.
So like we there's that through line. Like those shows didn't have that. And I feel like a lot of people our age and certainly younger would be like, what the fuck is Night Court? But they know what Seinfeld is.
It's funny because like in a way that logo that they have on the window, like for their law offices, is the Night Court logo. Like it's literally the exact same thing. I was like, the only thing that I've thought about though when I watch She-Hulk now, I'm like, oh, they don't have like a cool intro. Like it's just that jazz intro of Night Court is one of the greatest things.
It was very like SNL at the like I was like, woo.
I love that intro.
Well, it's used. Family Guys used it. It's shown up in a lot of like pop culture reference bits. Like I think it's the Bill Clinton episode when Peter's like, now play Night Court. It's so good. The show, I cannot sing the show's praises enough. It is interesting because I can't think of another good example, but we've talked about the other shows in its lineup and Cheers and even the Cosby Show, which is obviously there's a lot of negative things in that now.
Right.
But like at the time,
shows ever made.
Well, and at the time, that and Cheers and the third one in the slots, all of those ended up being these like influential, incredible, changed the landscape. And then like Night Court just sort of was there.
Having fun.
And it kind of reminds me of like I would say the last great NBC lineup that was like The Office, Parks and Rec, Scrubs. And there was a fourth one. And I'm like, I cannot remember what that fourth one was. It might have been the last few seasons of 30 Rock. But I was like, in a weird way, they almost always seem to be like, here's our comedy lineup. Seinfeld, Friends, two other ones that are good, but they're just not going to change the world. And it is like, that's the weirdest part about these I miss a good just blot. Like the only thing left like that, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is there, but I was like, I guess animation domination on Fox is still like The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, and now Malcolm in the Middle is there.
I have
Because
a
why
feeling
not?
that,
For a while, it was Cosby Family Ties because they went black to that was the lead. That's how it started, and then Cheers Night Court, and that was the run for a while there until A Different World took.
And
Family Ties
then
spot.
yeah, it's like, and then if I'm assuming right, like the next big slot had to have been Seinfeld and Friends and like the 90s.
Wings and Seinfeld
And
sort
yeah.
of took the spot of Night Court. That's when that sort of, and then Seinfeld wound up taking the top of the block.
Yeah, then it also a problematic person in that show.
Well,
Damn their lead-ins.
That because right now Abbott Elementary is taking off so much, and it is like one of the most recent. It's been a long time since the show has been that popular, and like now the season 2 is getting 22 episodes. I feel like they're gonna try to put some other good stuff around. Is that ABC?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that they're really gonna try to
bring back a Thursday night syndication.
Really have a comedy block. I mean, the closest we have is the animation domination stuff that Fox does, but outside of that, there's nothing else where they put multiple comedy shows together and just let it go.
I would not be surprised if ABC starts to formulate that around Abbott Elementary.
Well, that streaming pendulum is swinging back around. We're starting to do weekly releases. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised. It might be hard to do. I don't know how many people want to go back to analog, but I was like, I would love it. I would love if even Disney Plus was like, hey, ABC Thursday night comedy, it's also live here. Right. Just open up your app. That's like when Peacock was streaming SNL for 2 weeks, and I was like, no, keep doing that. Keep live streaming it. Why is this stopping? But I was like, I'd love it. I want to just sit down and be like, Office, Parks and Rec, 30 Rock.
I was so pro binge model, but now I'm over it. I'm like, it was fun for a while.
I've always liked the week to week more, just because I feel like, one, I retain it better, but two, I just love talking about stuff, and I love talking about it like episodes singularly. Like I like that, like Sandman. I love, but I'm watching it late, and everybody else has already done it, and I'm like, I'd like to talk about each of these episodes separately, but you're only talking about it in one big group. So that's why I've always particularly loved it. But there are people who are still on that, but it's starting to be a dying, it's like Blake said, it's swinging back the other way, starting to be a dying format of like
everything's a pendulum. And I mean, it'll swing back to it one day. And then we'll probably be like, these shows work really well for it, and these ones work really well here.
It's like Stranger Things great in a dump, because but that's not like Sandman. I honestly, I watched the first episode and I wasn't really feeling it, and I was like, if this was week to week, I'd maybe keep going, but I don't feel like powering through all of it right now. And maybe I'll go back.
It's dense. It's a meal.
And I love Neil Gaiman a lot.
It's a great series. Two of my favorite episodes of TV are in that, but it is a very dense, and you're like, I didn't even watch it all together. I was like, I'm watching 2 here, and then I'll come back and I'll watch 1. It's just that show doesn't lend itself to it, but Stranger Things is something you're like, although the episodes are too damn long this season.
I think that's also part of why the comedy block and things like Night Court and Seinfeld and Arrested Development and these other shows that are going to be on here eventually, we don't see as much, because could you imagine a Scrubs all dumped on Netflix?
24 episode dump of
that would be so weird.
It would be.
And you'd rip through it. Of course, half these people crush through The Office and Parks and Rec and Seinfeld and all their favorites now in a week and a half, a month, whatever it is. But I was like, this is why comedy really lends itself to letting it gestate and sitting on the jokes for a minute.
And it's a genre that builds audiences more than any other genre, because it may not not everybody might be watching it those first couple of weeks, and then you start telling people, hey, you should watch this. You gotta watch this. And then it starts picking up steam, and you're like, Night Court, the first 2 seasons was not in the top 10 of all the shows. By season 3, it was one of the highest watched shows. It just gained an audience. We don't allow that to happen. Comedies dumping it, it's not going to work in that format.
I didn't start watching The Office live until season 5, and then that was right when Parks and Rec started, and then that's how I got into Parks and Rec early. That's just the cycle of how it works, and it's great.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and I like that She-Hulk is doing it this way. I like that all the Marvel shows have been doing it this way. I wonder if some of the fatigue people feel if they were binging, if it would just be like, it's almost like the movies instead. If we are getting like almost 52 weeks of Marvel, but I'm loving the show. I think Night Court, I'm also loving that. I'm sure that
I'm
I'll
gonna keep watching Night Court.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now I'm in it. I'm like, and it's funny because the Santa episode I remembered. I didn't remember Michael J. Fox, but like there are pieces of it that because I watched this actively when I was younger, but I was also like 10. So now I'm like, all right, it's starting to trigger things back. And I'd imagine as it gets further along, I'll start remembering more because the back end seasons. But yeah, I'm in. I'm going to burn through these now.
Oh yeah, it's free on Freevee, I guess. Why not?
That's what I watched it on.
Yeah,
sure. whatever Roku says.
You tell me where it's at.
I just say Night Court to the remote and a new app appears.
I was like, what is this? Like downloading Freevee now? I'm like, okay.
But yeah,
and like they have like original. They have this new show called Sprung.
I just saw that trailer
before.
It was
like I
here's
saw
an
a trailer
ad.
for it, like maybe at the movie theater, and I'm like, but I'd still never heard of Freevee, and I'm like, what is happening?
Here's an ad for our Freevee original. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Why not?
Martha Plimpton's in there.
Wild. Yeah. A wild time.
It doesn't look good. I mean, for the record, it doesn't look good, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, She-Hulk's been great. It's gotta be next week where we get Murdoch, right? That's gotta be around the corner. But Terrence, you're right. Wong, everybody, we're seeing the comedy, and I just keep being like, yeah, it was here before. He just used to be the straight man for Strange.
Right.
He was doing bits in Infinity War with Tony. He was doing bits, and we've always been doing this. But that's the show, guys. We'll be back next week for episode 4. I keep for some reason thinking we're an episode ahead. I don't know why. It's the heat. Leave us a review on iTunes or Google Podcasts or wherever you are, and follow the show at Hollywood ADI, which is where our other show is whenever a new movie that has been rebooted or sequelized is out, and we talk about the why of that. Terrence also does our Hollywood RD YouTube channel with trailer reactions and show-by-show reviews for everything else that's not everything else, that would be insane, but many of the shows that he's watching. Of course, Jamie is at Phase Zero at comicbook.com and has all of her articles up, including her new one with Mr. Tim Roth, which I'm sure is just fantastic.
It's my dad was like, he didn't seem very nice. And I was like, no, he was. It's just written down. It's not a video. I swear he was really nice.
Can't hear the context.
When you read it. So keep that in mind. He was very nice. It was a lovely, lovely time to talk.
Well, we will see everybody next week with more legal comedy nonsense.
Later.